All right, welcome to another edition of the Sports Guys. We're here tonight after another great weekend of sports. Just unbelievable. It gets better and better. College football, pro football. We're going to give updates on both of those. We'll talk about the baseball games as well, where the baseball series stand right now. How you doing, Robbie?
I am doing as well as a pig in slop. Doing great.
I love it. One of the great Southern sayings there. So, anything coming out of the weekend that really hit you? Any big stories that you wanted to cover tonight?
It feels nowadays like with baseball going earlier in the week, Thursday night games, it feels like 2 weekends put together.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much, but I would say that the biggest thing has to be Alabama losing to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
But there was so much good football, and the baseball's incredible. So much scoring, and
I agree with you. It's almost not enough to have a weekly weekend update that we do on Monday nights. It's like
yeah,
the things that happened Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There were just so many great games. It's unbelievable, and I just want to bring it to you guys. And it's just it's almost like we're not meeting enough.
it's unreal. It's unreal. There's just so many games that come at you, and you think, "Wow, this is the apex of the weekend," and it's not because there's NFL and there's just so Monday night game, and it's awesome. This is so great. This has got to be the greatest time of year as well. This kind of reminds me of when the NBA and NHL are going head to head every night with meaningful games.
And maybe we have recency bias, but I just don't remember this many good games, both college and pro, in the same weekend. And weekend after weekend after weekend, just
Yeah,
30, 39, 38, 41, 38,
yeah.
40, 44, 41. It's just
It is
game-winning field
possible
goal,
that I'm more tuned into it now. I'm
possibly.
more interested in sort of the results, and our podcast here has certainly pulled me into some games maybe in the past I would have just looked past. I'm not sure, but I do know that realignment has improved dramatically the college football slate. The NFL is really exciting, and I'm really into the baseball. I can't stop watching it. So there's
Do you
three
think it's
things that are just going crazy right now. It's so good.
so? Let's talk about what are the reasons why. Okay, so for college football, realignment, yes, but I think it's also transfer portal. I think it's NIL. I think the
Yep.
talent is spread out a lot more. There's guys who are
NIL,
not. There's
NIL
guys,
is keeping players in school longer, so they're getting better. So you're getting better football.
but there's guys who are not going to hang around Alabama for 3 years waiting for a starting position. They're going to play 1 year, and if they get frustrated, they're going to go play at UNLV and be a star.
Right.
And the guys, the talent's just spread all over the place. And
But there are guys who are staying in college who are not coming out to be a practice squad guy. They'd rather make 500,000 or a million in college as a star. If they're right on the border of NFL, they're staying in college. It's much better college football.
there's no way in a million years that Vanderbilt would have beaten Alabama, which is one thing, but then to beat them and have a lead from beginning to end the entire game, they controlled the entire game.
Total domination.
Total domination. Well, I mean, it was a good game, but they controlled the game from beginning to end, and
They,
that would
they
never have
never took
happened.
their foot off Alabama's throat.
That never would have happened 15 years ago. The talent gap was way too big, and
That's right.
what's happened is the schools that used to be the basement of their divisions are now competitive, and they can compete with the big boys. That's what's
I
happened.
also think the timing of that game, that was a classic trap game. I mean, Nick Saban a couple weeks ago saying that there's only one not scary place to play in the SEC, and that's Vanderbilt. That was bulletin board material. That was a call to the Vanderbilt fans to go
Yeah.
crazy, and they did. That was a challenge to Vanderbilt saying, "Man, they disrespect us." And Saban's not even part of the program anymore, but they took that as an Alabama slight, and they were offended by it, and rightly so. That was a very unfortunate timing for that statement. Then you add in the fact that it took everything they had, so much juice to beat Georgia, and they barely beat Georgia, but they're walking around on clouds all week and not really focusing in on the task at hand. And Vandy just took it to them, you know.
Yeah. That's right.
All three
Yeah.
phases, Vanderbilt beat them.
And then in baseball, you're right. The dramatics, we talked about this in our MLB preview episode, and I think we talked about it pretty thoroughly about the dramatics for the playoffs just go up exponentially.
Yeah.
Every pitch matters. 2-1, 2-2. I was watching the game tonight when Detroit came back and hit a 3-run home run to tie the series
Yeah.
against the number one closer in baseball, the Guardians' Klaas, the
I know. I watched it with the boys, and our jaws were on the ground. We were eating tacos, and I let them not eat at the table tonight. I let them eat up on the bar so we could watch the game. And they saw it, and they were just stunned, holding their taco.
Yeah, it was
It was
just
a
unbelievable.
moonshot. That guy jacked it, man. It was such a sweet home run, and
I was at the
unbelievable.
bar over at the barbecue place near my house. I was eating at the bar over there because I wanted some brisket, and it was delicious. I'm sitting there, and they had all the games up, and of course the Detroit game's right in the center. And I'm sitting there, and I almost spit my food out. I couldn't believe that happened. That he jacked it like that. But yeah, baseball, the intensity is just so much greater than the regular
Mhm.
season. And then pros, there's just so many more good quarterbacks. The quarterback play is more spread out. When you have two titans come against each other like Lamar and Joe Burrow, you're going to get a classic, and you did this time. Um, you have the Brock Purdy's of the world, and three of the rookies are really playing well, and you just have a lot better quarterback play. You have, in some cases, defenses that used to be good that are not good anymore. So there's a lot more points being scored this year. So I don't know. It's just really exciting from beginning to end. Very few blowouts on either level.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the headlines.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so this is our weekend update for October 7th. I had to insert this photo, Robbie. I want to get your reaction and see if you remember when we did some of this when we were at Virginia and we did big upsets, like when we beat Clemson for the first time. We were 0-29 going into that game, and we stormed the field. We took the goalposts down. They were carried all over, grounds all the way down to the corner. And I can't imagine how excited these Vanderbilt kids are. They never thought that they'd see them beat Alabama, and they finally did. Any thoughts about this epic photo?
Yeah, so I was sitting in a bar. I ran out to see the end of the game, the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes of the game, and I ordered my wings, and I had a cold beer, and I'm sitting at the bar and I'm chewing it, and I'm realizing that this is going to happen. And I'm sitting next to a nice couple next to me. They were an older couple, and they won. Vanderbilt won, and the students start to jump down onto the field. And I told these people, this is going to be the most unforgettable experience of their entire college
Yeah.
4 years.
They'll talk
I
about
said,
this when they're 60
it
years old.
reminds me of a time, and I told them the story about when we saw Clemson
Mm-hmm.
game when we beat them first time in 34 years, 29 tries in 34 years, where it was the longest losing streak in Division I history. And we stormed the field. We took down the goalposts. And I turned to them and I said, I think they've taken the goalposts where they move them down to the ground now so they can't get stolen.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I remembered that was a thing. And I looked up and the camera showed that the goalpost's still up. I said, well, I must have that wrong because I thought all the stadiums did that now on a big,
Yeah.
big win. I thought because they were trying to avoid people taking down the goalposts.
Right.
And I said, well, those things are still standing. They're going to bring those things down. You watch. And they said, what do you mean? I said, they're going to pull on them until they come down. And they said, oh, no way. And then we watched it happen. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm just praying for everybody under that goalpost right now that it comes down gently and not on
Safely.
someone.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is about an hour after this picture, all the pieces of this goalpost were being carried all over Nashville.
I know they were carrying them down
into
Broadway
bars.
Street, and
Yeah.
they threw them into the river.
Yeah.
And the Nashville Fire Department had to fish it out of the river in pieces. It was kind of funny.
All these guys, you see all these guys looking up at the post, all of them will be telling this story when they're 70 years old to their grandkids.
I've heard that street is full of bachelorette parties on Saturday nights. I guess because all the guys are out at the football games and watching football. And this crowd storming that took the things apparently ruined a bunch of bachelorette parties. It just sort of swarmed them and they got messed up. But that's just hilarious.
They probably thought it was safe to have it that night because they were playing Alabama and they were going to get blown out.
Right. There's
Yeah.
nobody out on the streets there, and the girls can just go have a good time. But that was really special game to watch. There was a total domination in every way. Alabama definitely tried to fight back. They weren't going to take it lying down, but they just were not going to be denied, you know?
Well, if you look at the teams that lost, you had Alabama lose, Tennessee lose, Michigan, USC, and Missouri, all of them ranked in the top 11. They're calling it upset Saturday. You know, the first couple weeks
Yeah.
you only had one upset. This time you had 5.
So there were 5 upsets technically on paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, I told you I only felt like 3 of them were real upsets. I felt like Alabama, Tennessee, and USC were real upsets, and Michigan and Missouri were not. And later I found out, after I had that conversation with you, that Vegas felt the same way. Michigan and Missouri were underdogs with the line. So Vegas felt the same way, that they were overseeded, basically. They were seeded too high.
Well,
and therefore
Missouri
it looks like an upset, but it's not. The better team
Missouri-
won, even though the better team was not ranked as high.
Missouri had a very tough task. They went into College Station to play a Texas A&M team that was also ranked.
Yeah.
And it's a really tough place to win. It's a really tough place to play.
Yeah.
You remember when Johnny Football was there, he beat Alabama at College Station. It's just a really tough place to win. So that was a tough task for Missouri to go in there and try to win that game.
Apparently
And then
there's nothing else to do there but just go crazy about football.
They just love Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And then Michigan, you know, they had been kind of struggling this year anyway. And they play a really good Washington team, and Washington had kind of revenge on their mind from last year's college playoff.
Right.
So,
it was a rematch from the national championship game.
Yep.
And Michigan's just really struggling on offense. So, you know, I think the better team probably won that one, and so does Vegas. Vegas feels the same way. But my point is that 3 big upsets in one weekend in college is pretty unheard of these days. I still stand by that the NFL is full of parity, and college really is not. But there might be slightly more than normal with the way that these the realignment has set up better matchups. And what happens is this is what's interesting in all 3 cases where they lost. They beat a good team the week before, and they got caught in trap games. So when you play these hard teams and you actually win them, you shoot up the polling. I don't think Alabama was ever number 1 in the country, but they were ranked number 1. But that doesn't mean they were number 1. And then Tennessee was probably ranked a little too high, and Michigan probably too high at 10. They pull off big victories last week, and then they walk into this trap game, and they bust their nose on the door, basically, and they get caught not ready for their opponent. They keep thinking about what they just did that was so spectacular. So the realignment sets it up to where you play these powerhouses, and then when you play these lesser teams, they're actually really, really hard, and they're really easy to overlook. And they're going to bring they've circled you, you know, while it was still summertime. They want a piece of you. So these are really wild games.
You know, there was a really good commentary on the college analysis show last night. It was really good commentary. They were saying all these teams that have joined the Big Ten and the SEC, right? Like USC's joined the Big Ten now. And it's pretty evident from their first couple of weeks of playing in the Big Ten, they're not ready for the Big Ten. They're just not physical enough. Their lines
their defense isn't
holding up. And so some of these teams are ready, like Texas clearly was ready for the SEC, right?
Yeah.
Not sure Oklahoma was. You know, they're not quite good enough to compete in the SEC. Oregon clearly is ready for the Big Ten, but USC is not. So it's an interesting mix of these teams coming in, because USC is used to a very soft conference where they don't play any defense.
Well, I think we've overestimated USC because of that big win against LSU in week 1. We've done them a disservice by having them the expectation a little too high for them. When you look at it now, LSU is appearing to be a medium version of itself, not a great version. So that win is a little less shiny.
True.
And so USC is not quite as good as we thought. They're a good team. They should go to a nice bowl, but they're not. They shouldn't be in that top 10 range. They're not going to make the playoff.
Yeah, I would agree. Yep, I would agree. And Michigan's not going to make it either. Too many losses.
I think Michigan probably isn't now. I thought they were going to, but you can't lose to Minnesota and go.
Missouri still has a chance.
I mean, Washington.
Missouri might sneak in as like the number 5 team out of the SEC, something like that. They still got a chance, but
I don't think they should. I think they're overranked.
Maybe. So Vanderbilt's upset over Alabama, was this the biggest of the year so far?
Yes.
Okay, and first time Vanderbilt's ever beaten a top 5 team in their football history. So, I mean, pretty easy to say this was their Clemson like it was for us.
Yeah, I mean, to beat number 1 in the nation, that's bigger than that team that beat Notre Dame.
I agree with that. Yep, completely agree. Although that was a big upset too, but this was huge. Especially the way Alabama was playing, the way that they dominated.
Alabama
Georgia.
played hard, but had 0 sacks. They were just not. They weren't getting home. Just Vanderbilt just played so hard. They were incredible.
I will say Milroe.
Misdirections. It was a total team effort. The coaches drew up an incredible game plan. They were doing all these misdirection plays. Alabama was tackling guys 9 yards downfield on every play. And there was no domination at the lines of scrimmage like you would expect.
And you would think Vanderbilt would have just run the ball the whole time and keep the ball away from Alabama. That wasn't true. They were bombs away. They had a lot of big bomb plays.
It was foot on the gas the whole time, and Alabama kept waiting to start to dominate physically, and it never happened. They just weren't having it.
I will say Alabama and Milroe did have a good second half, and they almost pulled it out.
Yeah.
But
they just Vanderbilt would let them come back a little, and they would just put their foot on the gas again. They could never quite catch them. It wasn't like the Georgia-Alabama game where Georgia came all the way back. Alabama never was in striking distance, really.
So at least for 1 week, Vanderbilt is no longer the bottom basement team in the SEC.
Yeah. Good for them.
I was so happy to see this, although I don't hate Alabama or anything like that.
I'm fine with Alabama.
But
I don't think they should be number 1 in the country, but I was really excited to see Vanderbilt do this because they put such a good game plan together. 12 million viewers watched that. It was the most watched game since 2017 regular season game.
Huge game.
It was incredible.
I loved every minute of it as a fan who doesn't care about either team really. Next game was interesting, was Miami's victory against Cal. And you can see here, deep into the third quarter, Miami was getting absolutely blown out, 35-10. And then found a way behind Cam Ward, his running, his passing, a couple inopportune fumbles by the Cal Bears to give the ball back to Miami. Somehow they pulled this game out in the last minute, 39-38. There's been a couple weeks in a row. They had to do the same thing against Virginia Tech the week before. They seem to like to live dangerously. I don't know why they keep doing this. I don't think they can sustain this kind of play the entire season when they play better teams. You can't get behind 35-10 against Clemson and expect to come back. But is Cam Ward college football's most exciting player this year?
No, not college football's, but he's probably the top 1 or 2 quarterbacks.
Okay.
So
who's the most exciting player? Travis Hunter?
The 2 most exciting players in football are the running back for Boise State and the Ashton Genty and the dual player for Colorado.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
So Cam Ward's probably number 3. He's
electric.
There have been a
Yeah.
lot of great ACC games, but this was really fun to watch. I really enjoyed every minute of this game, and just realizing that there are not many quarterbacks in the country that could have pulled this comeback off. He's just so dynamic. He can do so many things. I will say Cal never should have lost this game. They found a way to blow it and give them enough possessions in the second half. Again, I don't think this level of play by Miami's defense in the first half, they've done it a couple weeks in a row. They can't keep doing this and expecting to get through. They're sitting at 6-0 right now, but
Yeah.
once they play, they have a little tougher schedule second half, and they just can't allow this to happen, or else they're going to get
Everything
some.
tends to change when you play a major program.
Right.
You have to play more fundamentally sound. You can't throw the ball 53 times. It's just not going to win. It means,
Right.
you can't play a Georgia and throw 53 times against their corners. It's not going to work.
For a Friday night game, this was just incredibly exciting. I just loved every minute of this one too. Again, college football this year is just so good. I love it.
Yeah.
So let's look at some of the scores. You had Oregon take care of business against Michigan State. You had Syracuse in another one of the ACC barn burners this year when they played UNLV, who had been, teed up, and everybody had been kind of saying was going to take the number 12 seed in the playoff. And every time someone gets pegged for that, they go down. And they went down to McCord, who's a really great quarterback for Syracuse.
Yeah, and Aronde Gadsden, the second, his son, had a really good game, 142 yards receiving.
Yeah. Did you see the highlights from that game? I mean, it was an incredible game. I watched about half of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we were interested in that because UNLV was creeping up towards the playoff.
Right.
And I didn't really feel like they belonged up there, but I think it was proven that they don't belong up there. But they're a really good team. They're real solid. They probably will end up right around 25th in the nation.
Probably. I don't think UNLV is going to get in now. I think they're, they really needed to run the table. This was one of their tougher games of the year, but everyone thought they were going to get through it. Syracuse is good, but not that good. Next big game was an SEC Classic on CBS, and it was Arkansas taking down Tennessee in the last minute with a touchdown plunge over the goal line. This was a hard-fought game. Both defenses came to play. Tennessee's offense the last 2 weeks, I don't know what has happened to this offense that was averaging 44 points a game. All of a sudden, they can't throw, they can't run. They turn the ball all over the place. I'm not sure what's happened, but as I watched that game, I was not surprised at all that Arkansas won in the second half.
Trap game. I think it was a trap game. Yeah. Arkansas is one of the biggest, loudest stadiums. People go crazy there for their team. Tennessee's walking in there, reading their press. They bounced up to number 4 in the country. I think that was a little too high. They're 5-6 range. They're still running the ball effectively, but let's see. How do you say it? Iamaliva?
Nico.
He was not able to throw the ball. So they became one-dimensional and just real. It just
he was reading his press clippings.
Ugly it up game, and Arkansas did a good job.
I think he's been reading his press clippings because they were talking about
it was a little
Heisman and stuff.
Yeah, it was a trap game, just like the Alabama Vanderbilt. I feel very similar that Tennessee overlooked Arkansas and got punched in the mouth and just didn't expect it.
Is there any easy game in the SEC? I don't think so.
No, but they're even harder when you're walking in on clouds, feeling really good about your last week. I think those are such dangerous games. Those are the games that the big time guys are losing.
That's right.
When you're walking in there, like, look at me. We went up in the polls. We're good. Look what we just did last week. They're looking backwards,
Yeah.
So another team the students are all around them. Like,
I think Tennessee will bounce back, and I still think they're going to make the playoff. But I think they'll dip down to 9, 10, somewhere in there. Another team that's kind of, I don't know how, but they're flying under the radar, and they have a really good coach, is Penn State. They're sitting at 5-0 in the Big Ten. They played a very good UCLA team that can give you fits. And everyone thought this might be a trap game for them, but they took care of business.
You and I talked about this, that I told you Penn State has been my one of my most impressed under the radar teams. I mean, they're 7th, so they're not that far under the radar, but and that's about right for them, somewhere between 7 and 9. But
That's right.
nobody's talking about them. They don't play a real sexy brand of football.
Right.
They're just real physical, and they're beating teams that are in front of them, and nobody wants any piece of that.
So another team that a lot of people think are going to slip in as one of the 5 SEC teams in the playoff is Ole Miss. They had the big upset last week when they lost. And this week they were worried they were going to be flat against a very good South Carolina team, and they were not. They really controlled from beginning to end, won 27-3 at South Carolina. Really were very impressive, very great quarterback play. They ran the ball well, over 200 yards rushing. What are your thoughts about Ole Miss? Do you think they're going to continue to be in the picture?
It's interesting. I was looking at the stats in this game, and there was no star. It was everyone contributed. Everyone had, 40 yards rushing, 35 yards receiving. It was a team effort. They just moved the ball effectively. They dominated lines of scrimmage, and they just kind of quietly suffocated their opponent. You know what I mean? There's no flashy play that's going to make Sports Center highlight top 10 or anything.
True.
But they just kind of snuffed out South Carolina, and they did well. I like to keep highlight notes of anybody who stood out on the offensive side or sacks or anything like that defensively, and nothing really stands out in the Ole Miss game. Everything
This
is
is the
just
kind of team.
Everybody helped.
This is the kind of team that if Georgia or Alabama or Tennessee were going to trip up a second time this year, it'd be against a team like this, Ole Miss.
Yeah, because
they have the capability.
You have a total team effort coming at you. They're not relying on one guy to go crazy receiving or running the ball or whatever. All you need to do is stop that one guy sometimes when you're playing a team that's really reliant on that one guy. This is a team that's going to beat you with whoever's open, and stand their ground defensively. And so I think if you beat South Carolina like that, it's impressive.
Absolutely. They're definitely a team to watch. We mentioned Vanderbilt, Alabama. We mentioned Vanderbilt, Alabama, 40-35. Really good game. Lots of scoring there. Ohio State takes care of business against a very good Iowa team that was 3-1 coming in. Totally dominated them. Iowa got a trash touchdown with 40 seconds left in the game, or else they were going to get shut out. Ohio State continues to just absolutely impress. They have a freshman wide receiver. I've never seen a guy with skills like this. He looks like Odell Beckham Jr. from a skills standpoint, but he's about 5 inches taller. And the kid is incredibly making one-handed grabs for touchdowns all over the place. He's ready for the pros right now. It's pretty amazing to watch. So Ohio State just continues to roll. I'm not sure anybody's going to really challenge
The
them.
impressive part is the Ohio State defense in this game, because Iowa had the second best rushing attack in the country prior to this game.
Right.
And Will Howard had 209 yards. He was 21 of 25, very efficient. 4 touchdowns and an INT. So he's making good decisions. He's getting decent yards, very efficient, incredible passing percentage. And so that's a team effort. They're just, in my opinion, they're 2 in the country. They're right behind Texas. They have the best roster in football. And they are just quietly beating the heck out of good teams. And I think we're not talking about Ohio State enough, really.
We really aren't. You're right.
They have a real legitimate shot at winning the national title.
I don't know how they can be under the radar, but they do feel a little bit like they're just kind of winning every week. No one really talks about them. They win by 4 touchdowns. They give up 7 points.
They're undefeated. They're beating the heck out of the second best rushing team in the country.
Yeah.
Second best, great roster. Loaded.
When you get a chance, go watch the highlights of this freshman kid. And we're about to show some highlights right after this, and we'll show one of his highlights. And the kid's
Which freshman is better, the one for Alabama or the one for Ohio State?
I don't know. They're both really good.
They're both first-round picks.
let's just say they're both 5 stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Georgia takes
Although the
care of
one for
business.
Alabama is 17 years old.
Yeah, that's right. Georgia takes care of business against Auburn. Everyone thought this might be a challenge, although Georgia was coming off the loss to Alabama, and they were pretty angry, and they
Yeah.
wanted to kind of get back on the board, and they controlled this game beginning to end. And the calls for Hugh Freeze to be fired are getting louder and louder in Auburn, as they are now 2-4 and 0-3 in the SEC. And this isn't what Auburn fans are used to. So I got to think that seat's getting hotter and hotter. But Georgia takes care of business. Carson Beck looked pretty good. Didn't only
Yeah.
made one interception and ran the ball well.
He had
So Georgia,
240 yards, 2 TDs.
yeah, you know.
Decent.
Miami's big win we talked about over California. Clemson takes care of business against Florida State. Was never really a game from beginning to end. Florida State
No.
really is that bad. A lot of people are saying that not only will Norvell be fired, but may be fired before the end of the season. They have a offensive coordinator they really like, who they want to maybe give a shot for 2 weeks. It's kind of like an interview. So we'll see if he even survives the season. But one of the hottest seats in the country is Norvell, after the incredible season they had last year, and this year sitting at 1-5 and not really even competitive in the ACC. And Clemson is back. So another big game we mentioned was Texas A&M's huge win over Missouri. Not completely shocking that they would win at home in that game, but very shocking what the spread in this game was. 41-10 against a top 10 team. Nobody really saw that.
And yet Vegas picked that upset.
They picked it, but they had Texas A&M by 3 points. So nobody picked this kind of spread, 31-point spread. That's crazy.
Right, but they saw the talent levels and they said, Texas A&M is going to win this. So I don't see that as an upset. You know what I mean? Like, an upset is the better team lost.
I don't see it as a huge upset. I just think the spread was really shocking. Missouri definitely should have been in the game. It's the number 9
I heard
team.
a lot of alarm bells about Missouri this whole season from a lot of podcasters that I respect and commentators who were saying Missouri's living off their reputation of guys that have left the program, and they're not as good as their record and their seeding is. So
maybe so. They have this really great quarterback who's an NFL prospect, though. So that's why everyone thought.
But a lot of their talent went to the NFL. So they just didn't reload, and they're kind of living off the glory of last year a little bit. And I've heard the warnings for weeks now, so that this is not a surprise.
Next game we talked about Washington beating Michigan. The surprising thing in this game was not that surprising to me, and that is that Michigan continues to be limited at quarterback and really doesn't have a quarterback. And when they're going to play really solid teams like this in the Big Ten, they're going to really struggle. Like you can imagine what Michigan's game against Ohio State's going to be like. So, this was not that big a surprise to me. Washington has the more competent quarterback and has a good defense. And they were at home. So,
well, Michigan's D still played pretty decently. They had 4 sacks, but they're just not getting any offensive help, really. Not the kind of help they need to really control the ball, keep them off the field. And
they have 2 quarters that go scoreless. That's just not going to work in the Big Ten. You've got to be able to score points.
No, not enough offense for Michigan this year to really make the playoff. I kind of felt like they were going to squeak in. I felt like they were headed for that those last couple spots, but I kind of changed my mind. I think they're just missing too much on offense, and I don't think they're going to get in there.
So probably the first biggest upset of the weekend was Vanderbilt. Second was probably Arkansas over Tennessee, and then third was this one, Minnesota against USC. No one saw this coming, although apparently people who really know the Big Ten were not that surprised by this. Again, commentators were saying USC was not ready for the Big Ten. And,
I did not see this coming.
When they played
think this was
kind
a
of
trap game.
teams,
if they play again, I think USC wins it. But I do think they took Minnesota a little lightly, and I think Minnesota is a good enough team where they're not gonna have that. If you take them lightly, they're gonna beat them.
Minnesota's kind of scrappy. They're one of those teams that, like, if
They're
you have
real
an off
scrappy.
day, you have an off day, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And they can run the ball really well. So yeah,
USC's defense got exposed a little
big time,
bit. They got run all over. They could not
big time.
stop the run. And I
Yep,
think USC's offense is close to good enough to be 11 in the country, but their defense is not good enough to be 11 in the country, and that's why they're not going to be in the playoff.
that's right. I think Michigan and USC are going to be out, which we wouldn't have predicted even a couple weeks ago.
I would definitely say USC is out. I think Michigan is too, but maybe
I just
one of them
think
squeaks back
I
in.
just
I don't
think
know.
Michigan is going to have 3 or 4 losses, and so is USC. And so I just don't see how you can get in with 3 or
The
4
nice
losses.
thing for Michigan is they're going to play enough good teams to maybe have some impressive wins on the resume by the end of the year. But I don't.
They're
I don't
literally
predict that. I'm not
Michigan's
predicting.
going to have they're going to have to upset Ohio State to get in, literally.
Yeah,
So we'll
that's
see.
what I'm talking about. They have an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to. But
So this next game, our buddy Luke, who's coming on in a couple weeks, he's going to be joining us here on the Sports Guys. Really great guy. He's an Iowa State fan. He's in absolute heaven right now. This team just rolls and rolls every week, sitting at 5-0, absolutely beating up their conference. Everyone thought Utah was going to win that conference, and now it's looking like Ohio State is headed towards the championship of that conference and the college football playoff. Any thoughts about this Iowa State team that nobody can seem to stop?
not really. It was a pretty impressive win. Again, I don't have a lot of notes next to it because there was nothing that really jumped out at me. As far as the stats, everybody contributed, which means there wasn't anyone that had 5 touchdowns or anything.
They can really run the ball and pass the ball.
Yeah,
They're
it
really
was a balanced attack. Everyone touched the ball. The receivers all had 20 and 30 yards receiving, some 40, but nobody had 150 yards rushing or receiving or anything. Just a solid performance.
That's right.
It was a lot like Ole Miss, just steady, solid.
So this next game is really interesting. This is by the 3rd and 4th team in the ACC. And everybody was assuming Louisville was the 3rd best team in the ACC after Clemson and Miami. And nobody's been giving SMU credit, and they're just a sneaky 5-1, and they've just been beating people every week. And this game was kind of a rubber match to see who was going to take that 3rd spot, and it was SMU on the road. Pretty impressive win here. Any thoughts about SMU as they continue?
They're one of the most surprising teams to me this season.
Yeah.
They're very solid. They're a real good team. I have a lot of respect for Louisville this year. I do think they're beatable, but I think they have a squad that should be in the top 25. And I've kind of felt like they were the 3rd best team in the ACC.
Me too. And they're sitting at 3-2.
Prove that's not true.
That's right. SMU in their first year in the ACC is 2-0 in the ACC.
Yeah.
And Louisville drops to 3-2. So
SMU should go into the top 25 now for sure.
No, I agree. Absolutely. They should switch places with Louisville, really. So the next game here, us UVA fans can be nothing but ecstatic with a 4-1 start. The first time we've had that in 11 years. I'm wearing my Virginia shirt here proudly and really happy with this win. Played a really great quarterback in Castellanos, and we found a way to kind of subdue him all day, get a bunch of turnovers, 2 picks and a fumble recovery. Virginia had a lot of key drives that were really important, especially in that 4th quarter as we were losing at halftime. So I don't know, just really impressed with the gutsiness of this Virginia team. I think Elliott, in his 3rd year, finally has this team pointed in the right direction. I'm not saying bowl game or anything like that, but I don't know. It just feels good to actually be competitive in the ACC. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I told you and Dad earlier in the year that I felt like Virginia program was ascending slowly and slightly. It's a better team. We had some guys come back that could have easily transferred out. So there was some buy-in to the program. Guys like Chico Bennett. When I heard Chico Bennett was coming back, I said, well, there's something here he must like. I mean, not just the school, but something about the program he feels like maybe has a little bit of pointed in the right direction. I think when we play the big boys, we get pushed around, but we can handle ourselves in the ACC. There's a certain echelon of the ACC that we can't handle. Miami, Clemson.
And by the way, we have Louisville next week, and we have SMU the week after that. So
maybe SMU is out of our realm, and maybe Louisville. That might be
yeah.
just slightly out of our range. But
Yeah,
everyone
we'll
else, I think we have a shot at beating.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we would beat everyone, but I
Yeah, we
wouldn't be
still have
surprised if we were to go in and pull off an upset at Florida State or
we still
beat.
have we have North Carolina. We should be competitive in that game.
Yeah, I mean, we should have a shot at winning that.
Yeah.
I don't know if
We'll
we
see.
will play well that day, but
We'll see.
they shouldn't run us out of the gym.
I'd love to see this team get bowl eligible. That'd be a huge achievement for this program.
That would be cool.
Yeah, really would.
Yeah.
So AP poll, you can see completely scrambled from last week. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen the poll scramble around this much. Alabama goes from 1 to 7. Texas back in the 1 slot. Ohio State, who we're saying is a little bit under the radar, at 2. Oregon made the biggest leap all the way up to 3. I'm not sure about that. I think that's a little high for them. I don't see Oregon as 3. Penn State at 4. Georgia at 5. Georgia was 5 last week after their loss, and I thought they would rise a little bit after beating Auburn. Miami at 6. Alabama 7. Tennessee 8. Ole Miss 9. And Clemson at 10. Any of these you have a problem with?
Yeah, I mean, I could quibble with certain little positionings, but those are the top 10 teams in the country, in my opinion. So, I mean, I think Georgia should be higher than Penn State. I don't think Oregon should be 3. I think Georgia should be 3. What they showed me last week in coming out and getting slapped around on the road against Alabama and then fighting their way back into that game.
Almost pulling it off.
Almost pulling it off.
Yeah.
I heard a famous coach on TV talking about how that was the coaching job of the year so far was Kirby Smart going in at halftime. And they said that his speech was very simple. It wasn't fire and brimstone, but it really got through to his team. He said, I don't know what's going to happen in this second half, but I do know we're going to learn a lot about ourselves. And so they went out there and they fought back so hard. And I think that's a championship type team.
I mean, nobody really.
Do I think Georgia's as good as they were last year? No, but they're close and they might have more heart, so.
And does anybody really want to play them in the playoffs? I don't think so.
No, I don't think they should have fallen as much as they did. I think Beck looked a little lost in the first half. There's no doubt. He looked like a freshman getting hazed by seniors or something, but he kind of came back second half and led the charge, and they actually went up briefly in the fourth quarter until actually it was only one play. Alabama put a stop to that nonsense, but Georgia really fought back. And so the coach is pretty outstanding. It's an awesome team. I think Georgia should be 3. And then
do you know why it's interesting they put these 4 teams at the top? Because they're all undefeated. I think that really means a lot to the poll people.
And maybe I'll leave it like that for right now, but
because they're all undefeated. Miami's also undefeated. They're at 6.
The beautiful part about the 12-team playoff is it doesn't matter if these orders are a little off. I mean, you could make the argument that the seeding matters. Of course, you're going to have to play a harder team the lower you are. But, you could be the lower seed or the
Alabama,
bigger number seed, and you can end up being the team that nobody wants to play.
Alabama could be 7 or 8 coming into the playoff, and nobody's going to want to play them. They can beat anybody with that talent. You know what I mean?
Milroe could go crazy on you.
Yeah.
I mean, Alabama had 0 sacks against Vanderbilt. But you want to tell me that Alabama doesn't have a lot of talent on that defense?
Yeah, they do.
They just didn't have it that night.
The one team not on this top 10 that I think is going to creep in either next week or the week after is Luke's Iowa State Cyclones. I think they're just creeping up.
Yeah.
I think if they keep winning, they're going to end up, right around
There's
the
a
10
couple
spot.
teams right outside that top 10 that are waiting for one of these teams to stumble. Sure.
Yeah, and if Notre Dame keeps winning, a couple teams that could get in there for sure. Boise State is on the rise.
Yeah.
So winners of the week, we got Iowa State, Penn State, Vanderbilt, of course. Oregon continues their rise, and then Texas A&M. Nobody had really been talking about this year, but they kind of announced themselves to the scene. And I don't know if they win out, they might have a shot at being that fifth SEC team that gets in. It's a real possibility. Some of the losers of the week, you had UNLV with their stumble that we thought probably would happen and might knock them out of the playoff. Alabama, of course, losing to Vanderbilt, the basement team in the SEC. Tennessee losing to Arkansas last minute and just didn't look like Tennessee at all. SC looking like they're not ready for the Big Ten. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback, and Missouri clearly was way overranked. Any problems with any of these?
No, it's just funny seeing Michigan and SC next to each other. They're mirror images of each other. One has no offense, one has no defense. It's basically the reason why they're not going to really continue upward.
True. Well, let's take a look at some of the college highlights.
What a ball.
What a throw. I thought Vanderbilt was just going to throw it all the time. Unbelievable.
Well, Imaliva had a pretty bad game, But, I mean, they ran the ball fine.
That's it.
They had a fumble, an inopportune fumble.
I don't know,
Arkansas
they're
had
just not the
4
same team as
sacks.
early in the year. I don't know what it is.
Tennessee's offensive line let them down pretty badly.
Look at that. Wow.
Yeah, it looks crazy.
Arkansas was pretty happy.
Yeah.
What a game this was. This kid is incredible.
Yep.
This triple.
Throwing
this kid.
dimes.
He's so good.
Yeah, nice play. That was wild how he jumped
Oh, wow.
through it. Yeah.
Super cool. What a game. Pick. Game over.
Turnover chain.
This is a great game.
Yeah.
Minnesota. They can really run the ball, Minnesota.
With the tush push.
Tush push. College stuff.
Yeah, they really dominated running the ball.
Pick. What a play that was.
Yeah.
He got on some pro scouts there. So many upsets this year. I love it. Love it.
Well, not really that many, but there were some this week.
I mean,
there
college
were 3
football, Robbie. Have you ever remembered this
ones I did not see coming?
Watch this guy. Boise. Gente.
This might be one of the best running backs we've seen in a long time.
He's so good. I think they're going to make the playoff. I really do.
Oh yeah, no question.
Boise.
Now that this guy's going wild, Gente.
Just say his name is
he's
Ashton.
on. He was busting 50 and 70-yard runs on every play.
Bye.
It was remarkable. I haven't seen a performance like that since probably in a decade.
Do you see his first name? Ashton.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's that kid, 17.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
17 years old.
He's so good. It's ridiculous. He's like a little Moss,
He is. He's incredible. A&M.
Texas A&M.
Bye-bye. Good to see you.
Missouri's D just wasn't up for the task.
I wouldn't want to play A&M, would you?
No,
They're good.
no, especially not at their place,
I'm bored.
College Station.
I couldn't believe this. Watch this. I couldn't believe it didn't stop him there.
Yeah,
You believe that?
he was grinding.
What a play. That guy's pissed. He had him.
Nice.
What a play.
Yeah,
It's a combo. Yeah. I love
great
that play.
play. Caught Michigan unready.
Watch it. Here's the freshman. Watch this. Watch this. Look at that.
Yeah,
He's a
good.
freshman.
I know.
Unbelievable. You can't stop it.
Yeah, he's physically doesn't look
Look at
like a
that.
freshman.
Crazy. He's 18 years old.
I know. It's wild.
Look how angry the number 13 is. And he
Yeah.
goes
He
and kicks
he
the
shows a
ball.
lot of lack of
He goes
class.
and kicks the ball too.
He throws his mouth guard, then he goes
Watch
up
this.
here, kicks
this.
the football.
Yeah, I know. He was so pissed.
DeBoer tried to defend him some, but
Look at
he
this
said
guy.
that we're going to try and channel
call him
that
the book
differently next time and all that.
He's the only Florida State fan left. And he reads a book the whole game.
That guy's pretty great.
I think it's so funny. They call him the book guy. Florida State's so boring. He reads a book the whole time. Here's Iowa State. Yeah, they are good. They can really run the ball. Bye-bye. Indiana's been surprising. 6-0 now.
Yeah.
They're good.
Yeah, they're good. They're
6-0.
pretty sure they're getting ranked soon.
They're 23 right now. This is a good game. What a throw. Bye-bye.
Yeah. That's a big receiver.
You know, there's been some really good ACC games this year, man.
Yep. Yeah. Considering everyone's saying it's a down league, which I think it is a little, especially at the top. I don't think we have a true national contender.
They can really run the ball. Penn State. Look at that. He put him on his butt.
Yeah.
That's what they can do is pancake people.
Klubnik. Yeah, I watched that play. My jaw was on the ground. Like, how did you guys knock each other out? Like, they're both going for the tackle and they run into each other.
This was a huge game, but Navy crushed them.
Yeah. Nice. Just glad nobody got hurt.
What were your thoughts about those highlights?
Great weekend for college.
It really was. All right, let's take a look at the NFL. So the highlights here, rising QBs, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, Jayden Daniels. You got Bo Nix playing well. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we were saying none of these guys should be playing, and now all of a sudden they're all playing at all pro levels. What are your thoughts there?
I still contend that it's optimal to not have a rookie quarterback. CJ Stroud, obviously in his second year. I think CJ Stroud is starting to make mistakes. I think it's actually possible to be decent as a rookie quarterback until you hit the playoffs. Because good offensive coordinators really cater to the skill set of that said rookie. And so they give him a limited playbook and they go, okay, run this offense. and they try to limit how much changes he's making at the line. And what happens to a sophomore would cause a sophomore slump, in my opinion. I've been thinking about this. Guys like CJ Stroud are starting to be given more of the playbook, more of the ability to make changes, to trusted with making different calls than what's called for. And they're starting to make young mistakes. So I think that's what you look at when you see a sophomore slump. But generally speaking, most of the rookies are not doing that great. But I think Caleb Williams looked good against a bad team. I think the Panthers defense is very, very underperforming this year. So
I mean,
take nothing away from that game.
Stroud's still a really good player. He's just having a little
Stroud's
bit.
a really good player, but I think it's inevitable that there's going to be some growing pains in year 2, because I think now he's given the whole playbook.
And then Jayden Daniels is just popping off the screen. I mean, you wait till we watch the NFL highlights in a little bit. It just is astounding what he's doing. I've never seen anything like it, really.
Tom, you and I said he was going to be good, and he's better than that. I mean, he's electric.
He is. He really is. So some of the highlights here: Jayden Daniels continues his historic start. Lamar Jackson outduels the Bengals in a high-scoring affair. And with another division loss, where is the season headed for the 49ers? And can they win a game without Christian McCaffrey? That's the big question. So let's talk quickly about who do you think is the NFL's number 1 defense? And I put these in ranked order right now. After week 5, the Vikings are the top-ranked defense. The Kansas City Chiefs are number 2. Jets are 3. Steelers are 4. Broncos are now 5th. They've been rising. And 49ers have dropped to 6th. Any thoughts on?
I think that's exactly right, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually don't have any problems with this. I might put the Broncos in front of the Steelers. I think the Broncos are playing that well right now.
It's the Steelers' offense is the problem. Their defense is pretty good.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It's well coached.
I think the 49ers defense is kind of fading. I think they're going to drop out of the top 10. They're fading.
Yeah. I think they're definitely struggling. They're not that intimidating of a defense, and they're counting on sacks, and they're not always getting it. So
I noticed when you look at the fantasy scores and fantasy points, I'm in 3 different leagues, and these top 5 are getting the most points. So not only are they the best defenses in reality, but they're also getting the most points. So it tells me something. That doesn't always tell you something.
Creating the most disruption. They're creating lots of hurries. They're getting
turnover, sacks.
Picks, yeah.
Pick sixes. So no other problem with this order right here?
No, it's perfect.
You think the Vikings are the best defense right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I have them at 1, and I have Kansas City at 2.
While we're talking about defense, I've been really impressed this year with not so much pass rushes, but secondary play has been off the chart.
It really has.
Lockdown corners, it seems like every team has them now, or a lot of the teams. I've seen some incredible – a lot of the statistics of throwing being down in the NFL, yardage, I think a lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of that has to do with the play of the corners, knocking balls down, picking balls off.
Because of that reason, and I agree with you, because of that reason, it's now made the stark difference between the good quarterbacks and the mediocre or average quarterbacks even bigger. Because the reason that some of these guys are having huge games, even against good defenses, is because they're just really good quarterbers. But these defenses are making average quarterbacks look bad. That's what they're doing.
There's so many times where a wide receiver, first of all, I don't see as much motion.
Yeah.
There's not the offenses, because they're younger and younger quarterbacks. I think getting the plays in is not affording them time for a lot of different motion or sending guys around. So they're getting hit at the line more. And it seems like cornerback play, they're doing a lot of good hand fighting inside the 5 yards. Mm-hmm. And then when they break free, they're able to have closing speed, and they're able to make plays on the ball a lot more than I can remember in previous years across the board. It's not just Revis Island.
But like As an
All these
example,
corners are dominant.
my whole proposition, Gardner Minshew is not a great quarterback, right? He's not even really
No.
a starter, but he's a serviceable backup. And he's serviceable enough where he took the Colts last year to 9-8, as an example, right? But
Yeah.
when he plays a defense like the Broncos, like he did this week, they made him just look absolutely terrible. Like he should be like
Yeah.
the third quarterback on the roster.
Yeah.
And so it just shows these vaunted defenses, the only quarterbacks that can really beat them are the elite, like the top 10 quarterbacks. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Because they make a mediocre quarterback look just terrible.
Yeah. And when Patrick Surtain picked that ball off and took it back to the house, I was joking how it looked like it was in a video game where you press the high speed button. And
Yeah.
it looked like he was running, on some kind of super speed mode
Right.
or something.
And like the Jets, I mean, their offense has struggled so much this year that they wouldn't be in any game if they didn't have such a great defense. Their defense keeps them in every game.
I
So,
couldn't believe how hard they were playing against Jefferson and all these guys for Minnesota.
yeah.
The Jets secondary was really keen to play.
They got
Sauce
Sauce
Gardner
Gardner
these
and all those
guys.
guys. Yeah. Yeah.
What
got
they
a
were
great
doing
team.
was they were putting Sauce Gardner on the second best receiver, and they were doubling Jefferson.
Right.
And it was pretty effective overall. It's
It
just
was.
the Jets offense had nothing.
Yeah.
So eventually you're going to lose when one side of your ball is just not
Yeah.
doing anything.
And then Kansas City provides so much pressure that
Yeah.
even though they lost one of their big cornerbacks this year, you have no time to get a ball off. So it's just you have like 2 seconds and it's it. And they apply so much pressure, so disruptive.
I really thought KC's defense was going to take a tiny step back this year, and so far, that's not right. They're just about as good as last year.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Let's look at the offenses. This kind of surprised me. The Ravens are sitting on top as the most effective offense this year. 429 yards a game. 49ers are second with Brock Purdy.
Mhm.
Packers at third with Jordan Love. Lions are really effective fourth. Seahawks fifth with Geno, and then the Commanders with their rookie sitting in sixth. Any surprises here? Any teams you didn't think were in that top 6 category?
No, I think the Commanders. It's nice to see them up there. I think they can rise higher if they have consistency. I am surprised the Seahawks are up there. I know they had a good first couple weeks, but I would not expect that they're still up there. And I would say the Lions should go higher. I would not want to play the Lions. They can pound the ball on you. They have an incredible offensive line, and they have offensive weapons.
You'll notice every Seahawks game.
St. Brown?
You'll notice every Seahawks game, whether they win or lose, and I think they're either 2-2 or 2-3 right now. They have a great offense. They win or lose 37-34. So the reason the Seahawks are up there is because they score a lot of points.
But
their problem is defense. Their defense is terrible. So
yeah.
But yeah, the Lions have a complementary football. They got a good defense.
Oh yeah,
and they're a top 5 offense
and they're balanced
for sure.
What they want to do is run it down your throat.
The problems with the Ravens this year is they can't stop anybody. Their defense is terrible.
Their defense is bad.
The 49ers defense is disappointing. The Packers defense gives up way too many points, way too many yards. The Lions, out of this group, the Lions have the best defense out of these 6.
Yeah. That's why they should have a real good shot at making it all the way.
No, that's true.
Without injuries.
That's a really good point. So are the Falcons in the driver's seat in the NFC South? They had this big game against the Bucs. It was one of the best games of the week, Thursday night football. Kirk Cousins, I don't think you ever really want to throw it 58 times, but completes 42 out of 58 for 509 yards, has a career day, 4 touchdowns, and breaks the all-time Falcons record on Matt Ryan night when he was inducted into the Falcons Hall of Honor. What are your thoughts about Cousins' performance and about the Falcons, and are they in the driver's seat in this division now?
Well, I'll say this. I think it's the weakest division in football. But I do think these teams are graded properly. I think the Panthers and the Saints are going to be real close. I think the Bucs will be slightly ahead of them, and the Falcons should win it. But It's going to be a really close division.
Would it shock you if the Buccaneers win it again?
No, but I think whoever goes into the playoffs from this division gets smoked out in the first round.
Did you notice that the Buccaneers are the only team out of those top two that have a positive points for, points against ratio?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
the Saints have 2 losses but have a huge points for, points against ratio. I thought that was interesting. And yet they're 2-2.
Yep.
So I don't know.
They blew people out in the first 2 weeks, and then
I wonder about some of these teams like the Falcons, the Ravens, these teams that have these high-powered offenses that do not play good defense. I really wonder about them in the playoffs.
well, we've been talking about for a long time how bad the Falcons defense has been, and I think they're slightly better than they've been, but they're not probably 30th anymore. Now they're probably 25th. It's not good.
And I still watch the Falcons and I get frustrated because they have these 2 great backs. They've got Bijan Robinson and Algier.
Yeah.
And they it's like they give them token carries every once in a while, like a couple carries a quarter, almost like a token thing. But you can see where most of the action is. It's on the passing game.
Yeah. I don't love their game plan, but I think they have the most talent in the league there. So in the division.
So you think they're in the driver's seat?
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't, nobody in this division is going to do much in this division. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if any of those top 3 teams win this division. I think it's wide open. I really do.
I think the Saints have clear deficiencies that people have found that out now after enough games.
Maybe. Right now it's 13-7 Chiefs against the Saints, Monday night game. Look at some of the scores. Falcons, Buccaneers, we just mentioned. Great Thursday night game, 36-30 in overtime. Unbelievable game to start the weekend. Vikings beat the Jets on Sunday morning in London. It was a London game. Really good, hard-fought game. Both defenses came to play. Vikings were just a little bit better, made a couple more plays. And Aaron Rodgers had one of his worst games in a couple of years with 3 picks. Any thoughts about that game?
They've been trying to address the offensive line, but I don't think they have. And so I think Aaron Rodgers is going to keep limping every game. He's under a lot of pressure. He's trying to make things happen, and he's forcing the ball, and he's throwing picks. Aaron Rodgers' QBR was 43.
Can you imagine a scenario where throwing it 54 times would ever work for the New York Jets when they have Breece Hall?
No, it's insane.
I don't understand it.
And Darnold had 179 yards and one interception. He didn't put on a very spectacular show. That Jets defense was legit. So it's not like it's a bad team. Their offense just is not well run. It's like Saleh doesn't know how to fix it because he's
but he has the exact same offensive coach he had in Green Bay in Hackett. Exact same guy. And this was not the model they ran in Green Bay. In Green Bay, they ran the ball Aaron Jones right and Aaron Jones left and throw to the tight end and play action. And you can't get play action if you don't run the ball.
That's right.
And so I don't know what's happened to Hackett. He's calling a completely different game with the Jets. It's just throw, every down throw. And, of course, that gives the Vikings the chance to tee off, right?
Yep.
So then next game, I don't even want to talk about it, but I guess we have to. Bears get revenge on the Panthers, or I guess you call it the rub your nose in it game, where clearly they got the much better end of the trade, where the Panthers gave away the store, 2 firsts and a second, and DJ Moore. And DJ Moore scores 2 touchdowns in this game against his old team. He obviously
that was his revenge game.
Really wanted it, yeah. And this was in Chicago, but it just never really felt like a game from beginning to end. It got so bad that Canales put Bryce Young into the game for the 4th quarter to get him some reps.
That was actually pretty shocking.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. What are your thoughts?
It almost felt like we're going to punish you for being so bad to go up against the team that we gave away all your picks for. And if you get hurt, so be it. I know that wasn't the reality, but why on earth would you play Bryce Young in that game?
He said that Dalton is the starter probably for the rest of the season, and he didn't want to get him hurt
I know, but
in a game that was out of reach.
why would you put the guy in there that you're trying to trade?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, it made no sense.
I don't know. They're trying to protect Dalton in the fourth quarter, and Bears are really coming too. Their defense played very well. Talking about good corners, they've got really good corners, really solid, slapping the ball away on every pass.
I think the Bears played well against a bad team. I don't think they're that great. If you line them up against Minnesota, you're gonna have a different result.
Was this Caleb's coming out party, or was it you can't really tell because they played a bad team? Yeah.
No.
Okay. Next game, I know you're very happy about. Dolphins find a way to get this win. The Patriots were actually driving for the winning score, got all the way down inside the red zone, couldn't get it done. Dolphins come away
Super Bowl, baby.
15-10 victory in what we call the toilet bowl, the AFC.
Greatest victory of the weekend.
They Dolphins hurt themselves in the sweepstakes for the number 1 pick. What are your thoughts?
Obviously, I'm kidding. I'm very happy that the Dolphins won. It was ugly. They're in a tailspin a bit, but every now and then, if you can grab a win, it's nice. I don't want to tank to get the pick. I just want us to use the pick wisely and try and fix our quarterback position situation. I don't think we're that far away. I think we need to revamp our offensive line and get some defensive pieces and a quarterback.
They were saying yesterday Tua may be coming back in 5 or 6 weeks. So
yep, that's what I heard.
I don't know. It looks like he's going to try to play the second half. See how it goes. Yeah.
I'm just glad they're hanging in there while they don't have a quarterback.
So the 2 games of the week were, of course, Falcons-Buccaneers was a great game, but the game of the week was Bengals-Ravens. These are 2 teams that a lot of people have marked down as going to be playoff teams, could compete for the AFC title. Bengals really should have won this game. I don't know how they allowed the Ravens at the end to tie it up and then go into overtime, but they did, and it was just a true slug match between 2 all-pro quarterbacks, 2 of the top 4 quarterbacks in the league. You know, I know that Burrow got me 40 points in fantasy, and Jamar Chase got me 42 points in fantasy. So
yeah, Chase had 193 yards and 2 touchdowns.
For them to have that kind of day and still lose to Lamar, who had a monster day himself. Any thoughts about
Lamar
this?
had 4 touchdowns, 348 yards.
Right. Any thoughts about this game?
There was no defense.
Yeah, pretty much. Is it that, or is it just that these quarterbacks are just so effective?
I don't think it was good defense.
Yeah.
I think these are good quarterbacks, but they're not unstoppable. I'm a big Burrow fan, so you know I'm not knocking him. I just don't. I think there was just not good defense in this game on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So next game I was completely delighted by. You have the 3rd week in a row that Jayden Daniels. Everyone keeps wondering when he's going to have his thud game, his flat game. Hasn't happened yet. Played so well that they took him out at the end of the 3rd quarter and put in Marcus Mariota for the 4th quarter. Again, a little bit of a curious reason why they would do that, but again, he said he was protecting his quarterback and the game was out of reach. It was clear the Browns couldn't score. They finally did score a touchdown in the 4th quarter against all of the Commanders' second stringers. So what are your thoughts? Is this Jayden Daniels and the Commanders are this good, or is it the Browns are this pathetic? I know the Browns radio all week has been calling for Deshaun's head, for the coach's head.
I'll tell you, the Browns are in a spiral. There was a play that was remarkable where I don't remember all the circumstances, but I remember that they were trying to hurry up and get a playoff. And instead of spiking the ball, Deshaun Watson just walked off the field. And his coach was calling to go for it on 4th. That's why they couldn't spike it. It was 4th. And Deshaun didn't didn't listen. He just walked
and he
off
was
the field.
and he was defending him after the game about it.
Yeah, and he walked off the field, and then they took a delay of game, and then they got their kicking team out there and kicked a field goal. But that shows you the lack of discipline and order in that organization.
Yeah. Whose fault is that? Is that Deshaun? Is that the coach? Is it the offensive coordinator?
It's
All of
the
them?
general manager. It's the
I mean,
general
it's
manager's
the
fault
coach too. I'm
for
sorry.
handing this trash pile to the coach and saying make it work.
Stefanski's a really good coach,
He is a
but
good coach. I'm not blaming the coach. I
no,
think
but
they should never have
Rob,
done this Deshaun Watson thing, and
yeah, but
it's
Rob,
all on the GM for doing it.
the buck still stops with the coach, man. He's got to take some of it. He has to.
I don't think so.
These are his players.
I think that the roster has talent on it, but it's overrated. And Deshaun Watson is a dumpster fire. He's a mental case, and he's lost the locker room, and he has no business being the starter. And if I put any criticism on the coach, I would have pulled him a long time ago and just gone with whoever else I have, and just bit the bullet. The problem is financially they can't get rid of Watson. They're
I know.
stuck with this. That's a GM sabotaging.
Maybe one of the worst contracts ever done. Has to
I
be.
can't think of there being a worse one. It's all guaranteed to a guy they knew had problems. He had something like 32 lawsuits going at the time they
I think
signed
the
him.
second worst contract is probably Russell Wilson. I mean, they're paying him $50 million this year to not play. The Broncos, and he's not even on their
They're
roster.
paying him to not play.
No, he's not even on their roster.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
At
So
least
next game-
Deshaun might be able to snap out of it, but
Next game was another epic game. I mean, this season is so incredible to me. I mean, the Jaguars and Colts come down to final kicks at the end. You see there was 24 points for the Colts and 17 by the Jaguars in the fourth quarter. Both teams really, really wanted this one. Jaguars get their first win finally. Trevor Lawrence has a really good game. So does Joe Flacco. And just an epic game. Either team could have won, and Jaguars pull it out. Any thoughts?
just really nice play by both quarterbacks, Flacco and Lawrence. Their stats look pretty even. They both led their teams well. It was actually a pretty nice football game. They were both real hungry, you know. They both needed a win real badly. I think the more hungry team won, but I think the Colts are still going to have a decent season.
Yeah, I do too. I think Flacco's clearly playing much better than Richardson.
Yeah.
So they have a little bit of a problem on their hands there. Shane Steichen's a very good coach. And his problem is that he's got a guy who's playing like a playoff quarterback, and he's got the guy who is the high draft pick who's, even when he's healthy, not playing great. So he's got a little bit of a problem there. We'll see how he handles it. But
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, trying to earn his $55 million a year contract, finally gets a win. I still think the Jaguars are a little bit of a dumpster fire this year. But
Yeah.
we'll have to see what happens.
I
Next
think they're
game-
going to fire their coach.
Yeah, I think so too. No doubt about it. I think that's going to be a potential Belichick location. Texans take care of the Bills late. The Bills actually had a really good chance to win this game and got the ball back, tied 20-20 on their 3-yard line. And inexplicably, I'll never understand it, they throw 3 straight incompletions. Josh Allen having one of his worst games as a pro, probably his worst game as a pro. He was 9 for 30. Which it's unbelievable if you think about it. And the fact that they were still in this game is kind of a testament to the Texans had a bunch of turnovers, but they throw the ball 3 times, and of course then it preserves enough time for the Texans to get the ball back in time to get in position for a 58-yard field goal, which they nail and win this game. It never should have happened. Any thoughts on this one and kind of the struggling Bills?
Well, I mean, a lot of us saw this coming. They were getting wins against weak teams in the first 3 weeks, and people started talking about Super Bowl for this team. And then their schedule, their next 3 games that were scheduled are real tough teams. And so we said, let's take a look after the 4th, 5th, and 6th game of the season. I think they're going to have a lot different results against good teams. And it's playing out before our eyes. The Bills are better than they looked against these good teams and not as good as they looked against the bad teams when they were just dominating.
So they're still going to win the
somewhere in
division.
between.
They're still going to win the division.
I think their lack of talent because they let too much walk out of the building is showing now. I definitely think Keon Coleman was a nice pickup, but you can only expect so much out of a rookie. And I think Josh Allen just doesn't have enough talent around him.
But
if you
it doesn't
stop the
matter.
run, you put a lot of pressure on Allen.
It doesn't matter if you have Tom Brady or anybody else in quarterback and they're playing out of their minds. If you're at your 3-yard line with 43 seconds left, you're gonna run the ball 3 times and you're gonna punt it with about 10 seconds left.
That sequence was inexcusable and was complete coaching malpractice.
Yeah, that was not him. That was coaching.
Yeah,
Just didn't make any
no,
sense.
I know. This is not a Josh Allen problem. First of all, they shouldn't have put him back in the game from everything that we're hearing about with his concussion. His head bounced off the ground really hard.
Yeah.
And he was out a couple plays or whatever and then back in, and that shouldn't have happened. And second, the play calling was just outrageous. I guess the modern offensive coordinator, the worst thing you can call someone is too conservative. Like that's such a slight or something. You never want to be too conservative, because what I realized was a lot of these teams keep saying, why are we not playing for field position? Why are we not punting on 4th? Why are we going on every 4th down and getting stopped most of the time?
Analytics.
Analytics. And also being charged with this coach is too conservative. I guess I'm conservative now. Maybe I wasn't before. I don't know, but I'm only going for it on 4th in certain circumstances. I'm definitely doing it sometimes.
Yeah, of
but
course.
I'm not going to be in the circumstance where there were, 38 seconds left? I don't remember how many seconds.
It was 43 seconds left at your 3-yard line. And all you have to do is run the ball 3 times and punt it away, and they wouldn't have enough time to have a field goal.
And granted, the Texans had 3 timeouts left, but I don't think they were even going to use them.
And what you do is you take your chances in overtime. Take it to overtime. You're on the road. Give yourself a shot. And instead, they throw the ball 3 times, all incompletions, with a quarterback who's very off that day.
And now they still have their 3 timeouts left. What do you think's going to happen? Like, you can't let that happen. That's coaching malpractice.
It really was. It was bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad. So next game was Giants and Seahawks. Really surprising result, but for some people who've seen the Giants coming on the last couple of weeks, even in their loss 3 weeks ago, it was a very close loss, and then they've won 2 in a row now. Jones is looking comfortable. He's playing much better. They're starting to run the ball better. Their defense is playing out of their minds. They had a blocked punt here for a touchdown. They had a blocked field goal for a touchdown. They're just playing really inspired ball, and they go on the road to Seattle and pull one off against the Seahawks, which shocked a lot of people. Any thoughts on this, what was an upset?
Jones has had 4 good weeks in a row. He's not the problem. He's leading his team pretty nicely, actually. And he put up decent numbers. 23 of 34, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's what a good starting quarterback does.
And I thought their defense was trash. I thought their defense was trash, but it's not. It played really solid in this game against a really good offense.
Yeah, Daboll's getting a lot out of this team that has a lot of problems and deficiencies. He's hiding them, masking them with scheme. He's doing everything he can to get as much out of this team as he can.
And by the
they
way,
let some talent walk out, and they haven't really replaced it with great players, but they're playing hard as a team, and they're getting some wins.
By the way, Malik Neighbors missed both wins. He's been out the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So they're winning without Malik Neighbors.
And I think that's just weird coincidence, but having Malik Neighbors is very helpful. But their offensive line has been hanging in there. You know, they're known as probably the worst offensive line in football, they didn't look that bad in this game. So, I know the Seahawks defense is a shell of what it used to be, but it's still an NFL defense, and the Giants look okay. Not great, but okay.
So next game, Cardinals pull off a stunning upset at the buzzer with a field goal, 24-23. The 49ers go 1-6 in the red zone and look like they just cannot win a game without Christian McCaffrey. Their defense is giving up like 400 yards a game. And but what's even more inexcusable, just like some of these other bad coaching games, the 49ers get the ball back with 2.5 minutes left with a 23-21 lead, and they cannot salt it away. And I don't know what it is with these teams this year in the NFL. There's a lot of teams that are giving up late leads when all they have to do is get a couple first downs and the game's over. And the 49ers can't seem to do it. And there's 2 weeks in a row they had a win that they gave away at the end. So what do you think is going on with this team? What's up with this team that everyone thinks is going to win?
I think they're having injuries. I think their defense has been disappointing overall. Purdy, he has 2 INTs, but one was because he got hit right at the end. So he had 1 INT throughout the game.
Yeah, but his red zone efficiency has not been good.
Yeah, I think they really miss McCaffrey in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I just
He's
think
got
they're
all these weapons.
I think they have a lot of injuries. They have some guys that are out and other guys that are playing hurt. And I think when you play hurt, you're just not as good as you normally are. So you're not a star. Even if you're a star, you're not a star on the field when your hamstring is hurt or your high ankle
Did you
sprain
ever
is
think you'd see
sore.
a situation with? Do you ever think you'd see a situation with this core of 49ers players where they would go scoreless in the second half in a big division game?
I think they're finally at a point where their players are getting to be so expensive that they don't have any depth. And when they have injuries, they fall apart. So they need all their guys back, and then we'll see. But I think depth is a problem when you start paying your Brandon Ayuks and all these guys.
You know
They
what's
probably should
interesting
have
too?
let Ayuk go and use that money to shore up defense or something. I don't know.
You know what's interesting too is the 49ers, they get home when they're playing statues of quarterbacks who can't move.
Yeah.
But when they play a guy like Kyler, he just runs all over them. They can't get home.
No question.
You can't get home.
That's a good point. Skyler had
Kyler.
83. Huh?
Kyler.
Sorry. Kyler Murray had 83 yards rushing. That's a lot for a quarterback.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
And I heard something interesting. It's hard to play against Kyler Murray because not only is he a coach's son, he doesn't watch a lot of film, but he does know football.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't see very well inside the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Niners don't do a great job of pressing in and keeping a mobile quarterback in the pocket. What he likes to do, what Kyler likes to do is get outside the pocket, and so he can see better. And then he's running around, and that's when he takes off on you because he's so quick. And if you kind of stay home and everyone sort of try to come in, people are going to open up for him. And now he has some good weapons on offense, so it's.
So are the 49ers in trouble at 2-3? I mean, are they going to be able to salvage this season when McCaffrey gets back? Are they still playoffs? Are they still going to make a big run, or are they don't quite have it this year?
I still think their starting lineup is impressive. I don't know if they can get healthy. Without getting healthy, I think they're in some trouble.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's the last opening of the window because they're going to have to pay Purdy next year. So
yeah, because they're going to make a huge mistake with paying Purdy.
$50 million a year.
A tremendous amount that's going to eat up. They're going to have to get rid of a lot of important pieces, and leaders and veterans, and it's. Right. I heard them talking about it on a podcast today. They call it quarterback inflation. When you pay your quarterback, the cost of everything goes up, and you have very little money left over to pay everyone else. And that's what's happening to a lot of these teams.
So next game is Broncos Raiders. Raiders really got exposed. They had a couple good wins this year, including against the Ravens. It became clear in this game that when the Raiders, with a subpar quarterback in Gardner Minshew, a backup, career backup, when they play a good defense like the Broncos, I mean a really good defense, they really struggle. And Minshew just looked like he needs to be a backup. And the Raiders clearly have not solved their quarterback problem. I know they wanted Michael Penix Jr. in the draft and didn't get him. And it really showed today. And I think Bo Nix had his most impressive day so far as a pro.
Yep.
And the Broncos are kind of rolling. They're kind of one of those teams I don't know you really want to play right now.
I remember talking to your friend who's a Bronco fan, and I told him, just be patient. They're going to look better. He said, well, man, I hope so, but I don't know about Bo Nix. And when they drafted Nix, and the star of the show is their defense. And Bo Nix is a nice piece in there to give them a good decision maker. He's not setting the world on fire.
I mean, they can run the ball with McLaughlin. Their running game is
Yeah.
really nice. And so now he has play action. Bo Nix is more athletic than I remembered. He had some really nice.
He's pretty quick. He's pretty quick.
He gets it to the right tight end or receiver, even if it's a little short pass. He gets it to the right guy to do some yards after catch. And then Broncos get a lot of turnovers on defense, and so it's a nice form.
And Nix was 19 of 27, which is pretty efficient. 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's what you want from your quarterback. And he had a fiery exchange with Peyton on the sidelines. And to a lot of teams, that would be detrimental or frowned upon, or, man, we got to fix that. But Peyton is from the Bill Parcells tree, and he loves that.
He did. He seemed to be impressed by it.
You know, Parcells used to teach that. He wanted his players to stand up to him.
But
hold on. He wanted them to stand up to him because if they did, he knew they would never back down on the field against someone else. But they had to go deal with it inside the locker room. And then they'd come out and Parcells was happy as could be.
Did you hear he wanted him to stand up to him, but he also said his comment was he has a little bit of Ferris Bueller in him that we need to get out.
Yeah, but that wasn't from the yelling match. That was from a couple of mistakes he was making.
Yeah, and what he's saying is this Ferris Bueller, meaning like he kind of goes off in his own way sometimes. He'll call little audibles we're not telling him to. And so that shouting match apparently was one of those exchanges where he came back over to the sideline. And he said, why did you call that audible? I told you to call this play, and you called that one. So he's saying it's Ferris Bueller because he's kind of goes off on his own a little bit and is a little mischievous.
But I'm telling you, Peyton is not one of the coaches in the league who hates that and thinks.
Oh, I'm not saying he did.
No, I know, but I'm saying it's significant that he has the right coach to deal with that.
But this is going to be a battle.
That Nix is going to have that kind of outburst very often. But I think Peyton loved that he has that in him.
But this is going to be a battle.
He's not going to back down from the other team.
This is going to be a battle all season between Peyton trying to get rid of the Ferris Bueller and Bo Nix trying to be himself. And it'll be really interesting to see how this settles out. I think they'll come to a good place. But
oh yeah,
he's trying to get rid of some of this.
I think he won Peyton over yesterday. I do. So. I think that was, and also he won over guys in his locker room.
No, there's no doubt.
They're looking at him like he's going to fight for himself and he's going to fight for us, you know?
So next game is the Packers and the Rams. It was an epic game. I watched the whole thing. It was fantastic. Wasn't very high scoring, but both defenses played pretty well. There was some turnovers on both sides. It became very evident in this game that the Rams can't make the final play at the end to win because they're just so banged up. They're playing with third and fourth and fifth receivers. They do have a pretty good running attack right now, but I really felt the whole game that the Packers were the better team, and they ended up winning in the end. I think the Rams, if you replayed this game and they had Cooper Kupp and Nakua fully healthy, the Rams probably would win this game. Yeah. But what are your thoughts about this?
I really enjoyed watching Kyren Williams run. He's a real good young player.
He is.
And so he kept them alive. I think Stafford was getting battered back there. He threw the ball 45 times. That's not a winning formula. He had 260 yards, a touchdown, and interception. He just didn't have much to work with. He was being asked to just hang in there and win the game if you can.
And the Rams defense is also not the same as last year. They had some
Rams
big
defense
losses.
isn't as good. I'm not sure the Packers defense is as good either.
I agree with that. I agree with
But
that. Yeah.
Love looked pretty solid. 224 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception. They just looked a little bit better than the Rams, who are banged up and missing stuff. And
Do you think the Rams are going to fall so far out of it that they're not going to be able to catch up at the end of the year when everybody's back? I mean, they're sitting at 1-4 now. They're in a really tough division.
a lot depends on when are they getting their guys back.
It
you
feels
know?
like they're starting to fall out of it now. I mean, they really
It's
kind of
hard.
need to.
They got to be happy that the Niners have been losing, so
Yeah.
that it brings down the whole division to a more,
The Rams are one of those snake-bitten teams. They're in every game. They're really competitive, even without all their pieces, and yet they're still losing at the end. So
yeah.
interesting. Next game, Cowboys Steelers. This is the Sunday night game. The game didn't start until 9:30 at night. They had a 1-hour rain delay.
Yep.
I thought
Did you
they
see it was
played football.
pouring there? It was wild.
I
And
thought
there
they
was
played
these
football
two
in rain.
fans that had these things over them, and they were drinking beer under their
Yeah.
thing, and there was lightning striking. They didn't care. They were just sitting there.
Yep. Yep. But this was a classic game kind of between two arch rivals who've been in the Super Bowl a couple of times against each other. Felt like this was going to come down to the last possession, and it did, with Dak throwing the winning touchdown with a minute left. Ironically, the play before that, he almost threw a pick, and it probably would have been a pick six. But any thoughts about Dak leading this winning drive? A lot of us were kind of unsure whether he had it in him to lead that kind of winning drive.
I have kind of a rule of thumb on a game with that much rain and just terrible conditions that I'm not going to read too much into it. I'm just going to look at it for what it is and move on. More so than I would look into another loss. I minimize a loss in a game like that. So I think Dak leading them down for the game-winning drive. He has the 5th most game-winning drives of any quarterback, which was surprising to me because I can't think of too many times he's done it, but he's 5th. He threw the ball 42 times, too many, but he had 352 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs, and a fumble. So he definitely tried to give the game away based on what was happening with the weather conditions, making the ball what it was. But pretty impressive drive for the win. I think Steelers offense really struggled in that terrible field conditions.
Is it terrible field conditions, or is it that their offense just really isn't that good? I mean, last week they lost to the Colts. They've lost 2 in a row.
Well,
And their
I-
offense it's just okay. It never feels explosive. I'm
they're
never
not
scared
explosive.
of it.
They're not explosive. They are old school throwback. Let's keep it low scoring. I think if the field conditions had been better, you might have seen them look a little better. Of course, you might have seen the Cowboys look better, but I'm not going to read too much into that because of the downpour that held off that game for about an hour or whatever.
Yeah, maybe so.
Steelers looked concerning on offense, but I don't want to do too much based on the fact that I don't know that you can really get a good sense of each team when holding the ball is just a
Steelers were the only team this year that couldn't run the ball, and the Cowboys were maybe the worst run defense in the NFL. They just couldn't get the run going. So
I'm a little concerned about the Steelers' offensive line.
I'm concerned about their offense in general. Their defense is very good.
I think their offense is definitely behind their defense.
I was a huge fan of the Steelers in this game because, of course, I wanted Dallas to lose, and I just was so frustrated watching Fields lead these 3-and-out, 5-play punt type drives, and it just
Like I said, sloppy conditions. I'm not gonna look at it too much other than what it was.
Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
Oh, There's my Van Kinkle from the Dolphins.
He should be a Dolphin.
Man, he's a pick six machine now.
He's so good.
Gosh, why did we let him go? We were screaming that at the time. We didn't want him to go.
I love the name too, Van Ginkel.
He's a beast.
This was a great run by Chuba.
Chuba had a really nice game. He's having a really good
year.
season.
Jayden, man. Watch Jayden. Look at this.
Yeah, he's electric.
Yeah. Scary Terry.
Scary Terry.
Watch this throw.
Actually, no, I think he did get benched.
Wow. CJ Stroud. What a throw.
Yeah, that was nice.
He's got an arm. That's his favorite receiver, Nico Collins.
I think he's going to be all pro next year.
That was a great throw, too.
Yeah. Trevor?
He is so quick, Thomas. Oh,
Yeah.
he is quick. Watch this. Look at that. He's so elusive. It's like a video game.
Yeah.
He's literally like a video game. It's crazy.
Well, I love that he's going out of bounds and not
I've
getting
never
hit
seen
too
a
hard.
Washington quarterback look like that before. This one hurt. This one hurt. DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Against his old team. Oof,
Yep.
that hurt.
Well, it's a business.
What a throw, too. For real. Jamar Chase is so good, man. You talk about a number one receiver.
Yeah.
Look at this throw. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, Chase had 193 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Rob, that's a rookie throwing that ball. What a throw that was. The rookie from Florida State.
Keon. Yeah, he was a nice pickup. It's just not quite
He's gonna be
enough to
pretty good.
offset what they
He's
lost.
pretty good. That was a nice throw. Lawrence finally had a really nice game.
Yeah.
A couple of really nice throws. Christian Kirk. Jamar Chase. Bye-bye. We'll see you.
198 yards. Whew.
We'll see you. He's just so good.
Ravens secondary is going to have
When you
nightmare.
have a number one receiver like that, it's just so explosive. So
Yeah.
on. That was a little 2-yard play. Touchdown. Nice. What a run that was. Bigsby. I'm telling you, the Jags have some nice weapons, man. How is Joe Flacco playing like this at 41 years old? Look at that.
He just knows defenses. And
Beautiful. This is the greatest play I've ever seen in NFL history. Straight arm, straight arm, straight arm, falling out of bounds, touchdown. You got to be kidding. You can't defend it any better.
yeah, that's pretty.
That's the
tough.
craziest thing I've ever seen. You literally can't defend it any better.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you tell your defense there? You tried.
You stiff armed a guy twice.
Yeah.
Nice ball. Touchdown. Tell you, man, Flacco's playing some ball. For the win. Boom.
Trevor's so happy.
Brock Bowers. Bye-bye. Runs like a wide receiver. Watch this play. This is what I'm talking about. You can't contain him. Just
I
one.
know.
Bye-bye.
He's so quick.
Runs like a wide receiver.
He's such a good athlete. He was a baseball player.
I know. Watch this play. You talk about why they picked him up. God, he's good. Sealed it. Derrick Henry. I cannot believe he caught that. He was triple covered.
Crazy.
Jayden Reed.
There he goes.
Bye-bye. Look how he runs.
I mean, he's no one close. Yeah, they're good on both sides of the ball at the moment.
Crazy. This is nuts. To win the game or to tie the game. Block. Bye-bye.
It's interesting, though. If you look at it, the guy next to him pushes the center down and allows the guy to jump over him. That's illegal.
Yeah, I saw that. All right, well, let's go to Major League Baseball playoff scoreboard. We have in the Mets-Phillies series, Mets won the first game. Their magical season continues, and then the Phillies won game 2 on a walk-off single to win 7-6. So that series is tied 1-1. Dodgers win game 1 against the Padres, and then the Padres absolutely thumped the Dodgers in game 2. So that series is 1-1. Same thing with the Guardians, Tigers. Tigers weren't even competitive in game 1, but in game 2 today, they won a 3-run. They hit a 3-run jack to win it in the 9th inning against the best closer in baseball. And then in the Yankees series, Yankees are up 1-0, but the Royals are leading 4-1 in game 2. It looks like they're going to tie it up 1-1. So we're going to have 4 1-1 series, it looks like. Any thoughts on the playoffs so far? You were talking about how you can't take your eyes off it.
Yeah, it's so exciting. It's super competitive. I don't feel like any team is dominating another. Every time one of them sort of dominates a team, it flips the next game. I will say a couple of things I've noticed is other than the Guardians, which game was it? Guardians, Tigers on Saturday. That was a 5-0 first inning. Everything else has been late. So it's obviously the bullpens that are letting everybody down. Bullpens are giving up leads and giving up last-minute home runs. Also, this is more high scoring than I've seen in past years. A lot of times in the past, it would be 2-1, 1-0, 3-2, 3-1. We're seeing 10-2, 7-5. Now, last year was different. There was
You're seeing 6-5 and 7-6. Like this Phillies
high scoring in the
this
final.
This Phillies walk-off game yesterday was really exciting. This 7-6 game.
Yeah,
I mean, there was
a lot of the damage is done to these teams to each other is in the 8th and 9th innings. So it's been super fun and exciting games.
Any surprise that all 4 series are going to be 1-1? That's pretty crazy.
No, I think they're all really well matched. This has been really good baseball. I think the starting pitching has been really good overall, and the bullpens have been not great. So, some of the stars are really stars. You know, Ohtani had a home run on Saturday, 3-run homer.
So did Bryce Harper for the Phillies.
So did Bryce Harper. So stars are acting like stars and doing what they're supposed to. Bullpens are struggling sometimes. Starters are doing well.
Don't you think the Tigers are
There's
kind
a
of the
lot of
darling?
runs.
Don't you think the Tigers are the darling of everybody who doesn't care about any of these teams? I mean, they're sitting there with a $28 million payroll.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, they're just like, I don't know. They're the little engine that could, I guess you could say. Huge underdogs.
I think baseball's hoping for a Dodgers Yankees,
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
that would be the ideal, but I'd love to
Or
see the Guardians against,
they'd be okay with the Phillies. Phillies, Yankees,
Padres or something.
series.
Guardians
Phillies.
Padres.
Yeah, that's right. That'd be fun. The least viewed World Series in history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to watch the game itself, though.
It would. Well, our most fun segment that we added last week, and we're going to do it again this week, is what we call our mailbag segment with Rob. So we're going to close it out with this.
All right.
And
Well,
Rob, I found the best picture of you I could.
that's the best you could find?
From our video last week, yes.
Yeah. Review time. All right. So I love hearing back from people. I wanted to go back a little bit because we just broke this segment out last week. And so there's a whole lot of episodes we've had that have gotten really good responses, and I haven't gotten to bring those forward. So I got several here. Two are about baseball. One said, a person said, no prediction is crazy when it comes to the MLB postseason. Anything can happen. Last year was the perfect example. And that was from Agatha. So I'm not going to say the exact name, but that was in response to when I said, wow, the Orioles sure, what did I say? That's not what I expected. And then this person wrote that. Any thoughts on that one, Tommy?
I mean, I completely agree with both of you, actually.
Yeah.
I think I responded to you too, and I essentially said we came down with a thud or something like that. But yeah, very disappointed that we couldn't win game 2 and go on to game 3. Really, the offense that was so prolific the entire year really kind of failed in September. It wasn't just in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I appreciated this person's attempt to make me feel better.
Yeah,
but I do think they were speaking from the heart that it's very unpredictable baseball, and they're not wrong. The next thing is,
interestingly enough, let me just add real quick that the Orioles, in terms of what they need to look at next year, is they can't be so reliant on the home run.
Yeah.
If they're going to have any success, that's 2 years in a row in the playoffs they've flushed out early, and they need to start looking at themselves in the mirror. How can we manufacture runs? How can we bunt people over? How can we get the stolen base going? Some days you're just not going to get home runs, and you've got to be able to manufacture runs. So that's
right. Next one is the Royals will win. They have Will Smith, the reliever. He was on the Braves in 2021, the Astros in 2022, the Rangers in 2023, and now the Royals this year at Dagobert. So
that's a really cool
that's
comment.
pretty interesting.
Wow.
That was nice to learn that. Will Smith, the reliever, was on 3 straight World Series winners. And
so Will Smith has 3 rings. He has 3 rings. Wow.
Yeah, 3 rings. And now he's on the Royals. So he bounces around, and he's always on a winner. So pretty interesting.
That is cool. Thanks for that comment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that comment a lot, and I learned that. So,
and now we'll be watching for Will Smith as
keep an eye out for Will Smith. Hopefully, he won't slap anybody at the Oscars. I did go back to a couple of our past podcasts, and I had a great time. I went back to our Iceland one, and it was really cool. It was one of my favorite episodes, and I hope everybody out there can go out and go back and look at that one for us. I enjoyed it. My dad was on, and we talked about our Iceland trip. It was fantastic. And there were a lot of good comments on there about how people were excited to go on trips with their family now. Like, they got inspired from it. So 2 comments I pulled from it. There were a lot more I could have. It said, love how you guys mix adventure with family fun. This episode is amazing, from Gabriella Bolt.
That's
And
great.
the geysers, the waterfalls, the glaciers. Iceland is definitely on my bucket list now, and that's Hoa Win. So those two kind of say sort of similar things. There's an inspirational element to getting introduced to a pretty cool culture and trip like that, like we took, and that was cool. Did you have any thoughts on those comments?
It just makes you remember how great that episode was to do it with you and Dad, and to share all the videos and pictures with everybody. And the fact that we have that memory on film now is so awesome. And I'm glad you guys liked it. I'm glad that you have now put it on your bucket list and that you want to go there. And I know that we want to go back at some point. So definitely can't wait.
Yep. And there were a lot more like that. Thank you for giving us the idea. We're going to do family stuff now, things like that. So that really made me happy, reliving that. And also thinking about how a long time from now, we'll be so glad to have Dad on that episode, reliving our trip. That was cool. My last one today is going to be a Blue Monday episode that we did. We were on with Lizette and Henry, and we were talking about Blue Monday, the band, and it was really cool that we introduced them to our audience, and we enjoyed hearing their stories, how they got started, and everything. We really like that band a lot. A comment was, we all loved Motown as teenagers. The Temptations, Four Tops, Jerry Butler. Then came along Iron Butterfly, Hendrix, and the Beatles. This is at David Summer. So that was just a different kind of comment, but basically talking about how a lot of us came through the same musical background of growing up in households, listening to one thing and then moving towards another. And then now we're listening to Blue Monday and bands that relive the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
So cool that that inspired that in you and the people that watched that episode, and that you really got kind of nostalgic for old music that we all fell in love with. So yeah, that's cool that you had that feeling. Yeah,
Cool.
that was
that's our mailbag for the week.
That was an epic episode, and really enjoyed that one as well. Thank you, Robbie.
Sure.
Well, Robbie, any final thoughts as we wrap up week 5 of the NFL, week 6 in college, and as we watch these incredible playoffs in baseball?
I'm loving all of it. Please keep the comments coming. I want to read some fun mailbags. Throw some humor in there or something heartfelt about what we're talking about. And feel free to offer ideas on segments. We have some really interesting thoughts on episodes we're going to have. So they're gonna be fun and different very soon. We are planning them as we speak. But I'd love to get some comments on our episodes, on ideas for things, funny things you have going on that are relevant to what we're talking about. And it's always great to hear from everyone out there.
Absolutely. And as Rob said, we have some great stuff coming your way. We have some really cool guests coming, and we have a really cool episode that's going to be really different from something we've never done before. That it was Rob's idea. We're putting that together right now, so look for that coming up shortly. So anyway, Robbie, had a great conversation with you. Another amazing weekend in sports. Look forward to the next one. And thanks, everybody, for joining tonight. Definitely like the video, subscribe to the channel. And we will see you next time on the Sports Guys.
Thanks for joining us.